Now, considering this topic, this video is going to be a little bit longer than usual, but please bear with me, because when it comes to something like asthma, you might know somebody who has asthma, or you might have asthma yourself. The contents of this video will make your life far more bearable. Now, you've got to bear in mind that there are some elite athletes in the Olympics. A lot of those athletes have asthma, but they've achieved some of the greatest feats of all time. So you can do it too. It's all about how you manage your asthma. So if you like the content of this video, please like, share, subscribe. Let other people know about the content, because it can not only just make their lives more bearable, it could even save a life. Now, please also bear in mind that this is not medical advice. So as a disclaimer, you do want to go to your GP if you're needing medical advice. This is health and fitness advice. Now, to distinguish the difference between the two, one is to deal with the medicine, the treatment of the symptoms itself. Your GP will know your medical profile, you'll know your history, and will be able to guide you accordingly. Health and fitness, however, is generic. It's about preventing yourself from getting sick or having to deal with the symptoms. Now, if you manage it properly, you may never ever have to have those symptoms. Now, I am somebody who had asthma for 35 years, so I guess I'm a bit of an authority on this. The first 20 years, I only ever received medical advice. And with medical advice, I was just suffering all the time, taking more and more medication. I was hooked on the medication, but I was not getting any healthier. When I learned health advice, then suddenly my life turned around, and I would never think that I would be healthier than I was 20 years ago. When I first noticed I had asthma, I was about the age of 8, and it didn't just come on to me like an asthma attack or so on. I just remember that I was always a healthy child. I was somebody who loved to play a lot of sports, and when you play sports as a child, you're chasing after the endorphins of pushing your body to its maximum. Easy to forget that that's what you used to do as a child. Think about when you used to bounce on the bed and your heart rate would hit its maximum. You're getting lots and lots of endorphins. You would stop for a brief period of time and then you go again. So I was never deterred from being active. But then there was a period where I was struggling to retain oxygen. Now, this might seem a little bit funny, but you got to think like an 8-year-old child. There was a TV program with a comic character played by Lenny Henry, a well-known comic here in the UK. And that character was called Winston Jazzmatazz. He would introduce himself, a Rasta character, by saying, "Okay," and that picked up among school kids, where we would compete against each other to see who could hold their okays for the longest period of time. And I noticed that I couldn't hold it for more than 4 seconds. It was kind of like this. That was playing for time, by the way, the long in breath. Okay. Now you know that sounds pathetic. My friends were in hysterics. They thought I was joking around, but I was deeply concerned, because not being able to retain oxygen in your lungs means that something is not right with my health. Nevertheless, I thought it was just something temporary. I then subsequently contracted a cold. And when you have a cold, you can have that excess mucus. And if you have a respiratory illness like COPD or asthma, you will be familiar with wheezing, where mucus gets lodged in your airwaves. You can't seem to be able to dislodge it. You cough and you cough, some comes up, but it just like more and more gets produced. And you can take a cough medicine or whatever but it just will not go. Again, I just put that down to being temporarily sick. And then I started to suffer with chest pains. It was like a cramping sensation. I couldn't breathe. My parents became alarmed. They called the GP, who came late at night. He did a few tests on me, which included the peak flow meter, where you just breathe into it. So you take a deep breath and you breathe into it. You're trying to get 10. I only got 0.5. And he said, you need to get to hospital immediately. So we rushed off to hospital, and I was put on a ventilator and then diagnosed with asthma. Now, I was given a few medication, and the medication I was initially given was a capsule, which is blue and white, and it would put it into a contraption, some kind of mechanism where you break it in half and then suck in. Okay, and the powder in the capsule would hit your lungs and relieve the symptoms. Now, the downside to that is the actual contraption itself will get clogged up with previous powder, and then that meant even dirt got in there and dust in there. But also, if you're suffering and you can't breathe, how are you going to be able to suck it all in? So that evolved into the modern day inhaler that we have here. I've got the brown one and the blue one. Now the blue one rather is the reliever, and it's important that everybody knows how to administer this, because even if you don't have asthma, you may know somebody who has an attack and they may ask you to help them administer it. So you remove the cap, and the actual victim will be breathing out till there's no air left in their lungs, and then wrap their lips around this nice and tightly, and you will puff 2 or 3 times. Okay, now you can puff up to 10 times apparently without overdosing, but let's stick with 2 or 3. And that person will then suck in the air, it will hit the base of their lungs, and then you get instant relief. It is so powerful because it contains antibiotics, which gets rid of obviously the pathogen in there, and then you can breathe properly. Now I want you to bear that in mind, because it's so powerful that it might have an adverse effect if you take it too many times. So we've got what we call the preventer. Now the preventer is not that powerful, but it does what it says on the tin. So you would take it regularly 2 or 3 times a day if you are prescribed to do so, and that will prevent you from getting the symptoms, so you don't need to go to the reliever. Now, me being a child at the age of 8, didn't really take in that information. I was a little bit irresponsible with it. I only ever suffered with asthma symptoms maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year. So I would take this and throw it somewhere and lose it. Didn't need that, and only depended on this when I needed it. Now, I will keep one in my bag as I go to school, and then I will lose that. And I'll also lose the cap, the dust cap. So my parents insisted that I have one at home, one in my classroom at school, and one in my bag. So there will always be one at hand in case I needed my asthma inhaler. Now for the next 10 years, every year, like clockwork, I would have an asthma attack around about fall time. So the end of September, October, the flu season, I would suddenly suffer, and then I'd end up being admitted to hospital, and again have to go through that full cycle of going through the ventilator and then getting discharged with more medication. I'll get weaker and weaker because the symptoms will get worse. To one point, if I ever had the flu, it was almost life-threatening. I would pass out on the streets, I couldn't breathe at all, and it was just getting worse. I could never imagine that I would live the healthy lifestyle that I do now at middle age. Now, when I got into my 20s, I'm now looking after myself, and I was not making the right choices at all. So we're going to look at the 4 categories that we all should be looking at when it comes to managing your health, not just when it comes to asthma, but generally when it comes to anybody's health, to prevent you from having negative symptoms. And these 4 categories are as follows. Number 1, our environment. Now our environment, there are certain parts of our environment we can't control, and there are parts of our environments we can control. When it comes to your habitat where you live, your apartment, that is entirely under your control. Whereas when you leave your home, you're out in the streets or maybe in the workplace, it's not entirely under your control. But if you make the right choices, you'll find that you'll suffer with the symptoms a lot less. Then we've also got our diet. Now our diet, you don't have to make severe changes unless you have a really bad diet. But as long as you're eating foods that contain as many nutrients as possible, you'll be surprised how much of a difference that makes. Then we're going to our exercises. Now, of course, in today's world, we very much focus on the aesthetics, body composition, but we're not thinking about strengthening ourselves when it comes to day-to-day life. So if I go to the gym and I pump heavy weights, that's no good if I don't have the strength to walk down the road. And then finally, we'll go with our connection with the mind and the nervous system. This is something that's so neglected when it comes to medical advice, but there is a strong connection between the state of your mind and your nervous system. And if your nervous system goes into fight and flight, then you'll start to panic, and then you'll get those symptoms. Now, let's start with our environment. You'll notice behind me that I have 2 plants, but outside of the view of the camera, I have more plants. Now, it's been said that your plants can remove toxins in your environment. Toxins such as aerosols or sprays that you use to clean your windows and so on. Now, I'm not too sure if that can be proven, but putting that aside, healthy plants means a healthy environment. You see, I got plants and they're flourishing. So if they're flourishing, it means that I will flourish. It's still a living organism and it needs to breathe in the environment. So usually it's a good sign. If I've got dying plants, I don't just throw them out. What I would do is make changes, because within 2 or 3 days, it'll go back to flourishing. And that's about responsibility. So if I am a 19-year-old lad, I know that's not the first thing that you put into your apartment. If you're in a college apartment, university apartment, or whatever you, please, strong advice, get plants, look after plants. And if you can look after plants, it's a good chance that you can look after yourself. I also had a cat, and that's why I grew up with a cat in the household. And then once I stopped having a cat, strangely enough, I didn't have the symptoms. So I'm not saying you should throw your cat out if you've got one, but just bear in mind that that may play a factor as well. Pets do have an effect on whether you have asthma attacks or not. Now, we're talking about the toxins in the air. You want to be inhaling as fresh air as possible. So let's get rid of these aerosols and replace them. I can spray white vinegar with a little bit of essential oils which smell really nice and use that to clean my environment. It doesn't cost a lot. In fact, it doesn't cost much more than just the normal aerosols, but it's healthier. If I want the place to smell better, I can use diffusers, I can use potpourri, I can use incense. These are really good healthy alternatives, and the smell lasts a lot longer as well. If you spray an aerosol, it lasts for a couple of hours and you need to spray again. I'll also try and avoid using those plugins because they can also trigger off asthma as well. But again, it's entirely up to you to make the choices, as long as you're aware that there are things in your environment that can trigger off your asthma. Now, in regards to the diet, we need to eat as many nutrients as possible to be healthy. Once upon a time, we would die to get nutrients. We couldn't get them anywhere. Now you can go to your local store, which is about 3 minutes away from you, and you can see all the fruits that you require, all the vegetables that we require, yet we are eating less nutrients than we've ever done before. Now, just take advantage of that. The more nutrients you have, the less likely it is that you will be nutrient deficient. Now, we can't really sort of always be counting exactly the nutrients we have, so just get as many different colors as you can in your diet. You also need to look at our gut biome, because remember I said earlier that this contains antibiotics. Now, what is an antibiotic? What it does is it gets rid of bad bacteria. So as you spray this, it goes into your lungs and obliterates any of the bad bacteria, but it can't distinguish between the bad bacteria and the good bacteria, which is your immune system, which fights off the pathogens. So you will get a temporary relief, but once the pathogen hits the lungs again, something that's a toxin in the air, then it can't cope because it doesn't have any system to fight it off. The answer to developing your immune system are probiotics and prebiotics. Of course, you can get antibiotics from capsules, but you can have fermented foods which are a lot cheaper, and although they don't look like they taste good, they are amazing. You don't need to have sauces in your food once you figure out how amazing fermented foods can be. So that includes foods like sauerkraut or kimchi. You've got artichokes, which is also really, really powerful. And get lots of nuts and seeds. I like to have trail mix all the time and make sure they've got spices in them, so you don't need to have any sweets, because again, sugary substances do also obliterate your microbiome. These are things, again, I would like you to experiment with, but please be responsible when it comes to looking after your microbiome. Now we're looking at the exercises. This is quite self-explanatory. Strength isn't just about muscular size. Strength is about your ability to do something. So your ability to move something from here to here, to be able to move yourself from one place to another. And if you're not looking after your lungs, then there's no point being physically strong. So you want to be doing cardio exercises. Now, I'm not somebody who likes to be on a treadmill for too long. 5-10 minutes is the most I really like to do. I have run marathons in the past, but I've never really enjoyed it. But what I do enjoy doing is riding my bike. Now, what's interesting here is that I ride a bike around London, and I will ride it into the most polluted areas without a mask. And yet I can withstand that. It never has a problem with me. So it seems to be a bit of a myth when they say that you need to deal with the air pollution because people are getting asthma. Maybe the people of asthma need health advice, because my strong lungs help me to be able to deal with that environment. I've never had an asthma attack by riding my bike in polluted areas in London. Now, the final part is to deal with the state of our minds. Now, here in the Western world, we don't tend to attend to that. There's always a big gap there. It's not really being addressed. And we sort of dismiss it as a little bit woo-woo or esoterical, maybe even religious. But it is extremely powerful. To illustrate, there's been times whereby I've been hiking up in the mountains or cross-country cycling or running a marathon. And I haven't stopped to think that I needed my inhaler. I never took it at all. And I've completed these challenges. But there's also been times where I'm sort of starting the challenge and then realize I haven't taken my inhaler and instantly felt a tightness in my chest. There was one instance where I ran a mile and I found myself struggling to breathe because I didn't take the inhaler. I realized I hadn't taken it. Then went home, took the inhaler and completed the marathon. This is purely a placebo effect or nocebo effect, which I'm not going to suggest that you stop taking your medication because that will be unethical, and what works for one person in regards to how they believe their body works and how they believe in their medication, and another is very different. But it does illustrate how powerful the mind is. Now, homeostasis is when your body gets to that point of balance. It's fully recovered and it's operating the way it should do. But it's all about getting the relationship between stress and relaxation right. Again, here in the Western world, we don't have times where we just stop and relax. And we get up first thing in the morning and straight away we've got noise around us. We're scrolling on our phones. We're listening to loud music. We're eating food straight away. We're being entertained. It's all go, go, go. The pollution of our environment isn't just about the air, but it's about the noise. It's about the stress. It's about the thinking all the time. There needs to be a moment where we just stop and be present. When was the last time that you stopped to just appreciate the sound of nature, to listen to birds singing and distinguish between one bird and another? When was the last time you listened to the flow of water? When was the last time you stopped to smell something? We talked about different smells in your environment, and you've got incenses and we've got candles and we've got essential oils, but stop to just inhale it and just relax and be present. You'll notice that there are no times when we do that, and because of that we're constantly in a state of stress. Another thing that works for me is just cuddling somebody, just stopping and cuddling. I'm not thinking about doing anything more than just relaxing as I cuddle someone or give someone a hug. They're very, very powerful, but there must be a time that you do it. When is your time? Is it first thing in the morning? Is it the last thing at night? Or is it a certain time in the day? And your body will go into homeostasis. All of the measures that we addressed earlier will not work unless we get the stress and the relaxation balance right. Now, just must also, before we conclude, address that we can't always be in relaxation or in a safe space. We know about that because there are people who are always avoiding stress all the time, and because of that they can't cope with stress when it just happens upon them. They're very, very weak. And then we've got also people who work out all the time. You've got two subjects. Subject A is working out 100% in the gym, and subject B is working out 100% as well. However, subject A will do it 7 days a week and subject B will do it 5, maybe 4 days a week. Subject B will always get better gains and progress, whereas subject A probably will regress because they're working out so much that their body cannot get time to go into homeostasis. So I would challenge you to stop and think about how you're going to structure your day so that you can go through that homeostasis and relaxation. For me, it's prayer first thing in the morning because it allows me to be grateful, show gratitude for what I have in my life, and then I can take on the day. Anyway, that's it for now. Hopefully you took away something that you can apply to your life. Maybe you can, like I said, like, share, subscribe. Like I said, there's more of this also on my Patreon, which is on patreon.com/BSNM. And I hope to see you in the next video post. See you then.